From CBS 4 News, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Good morning, I'm Jim DeFede and welcome to Facing South Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis is continuing to undermine public health officials, according to his critics. This week, the governor said he would consider levying millions of dollars in fines against the cities that require workers to get vaccinated. He continues to oppose mask mandates, and he stood shoulder to shoulder at a press conference with individuals who spread dangerous misinformation about the vaccine. And by doing this, he has helped fuel the angry mob that is eager to shout and scream and act like fools. Take a look at this guy inside the Apple store in Miami Beach who refused to wear a mask and shouted the governor was on his side.
The DeSantis said to wear masks! DeSantis passed a mask mandate. No, he didn't. You know why? Because they don't work. You study the science, they don't work. Masks do not work. They hurt people. They hurt the children. You're hurting the children. You're hurting the children.
I spoke about DeSantis' latest actions with Miami Beach Mayor Dan Gelber.
Listen, it's a terrible situation, honestly, because in any crisis, but certainly in a healthcare crisis, where not everybody is a doctor or a scientist, good information is what people need to rely on, and you're going to get that from your leaders. And he has the most prominent voice in Florida and one of the most prominent in the country. And although at the beginning of the pandemic, I thought he was very responsible, frankly, I think since then, and of course most recently, he's become incredibly irresponsible because I think he's just sort of playing to a political primary that may happen in a couple of years, and it's gotten to the point where his victories are our losses, and I mean ours, I mean the residents, and his losses are our victories, because he's fighting against what is obviously important, medical practices that will save lives, and he's fighting them right now.
Well, it seems as if the calculation is that he can just wait it out and bank on the notion that a year from now, none of this will matter. What decisions he made today won't matter a year from now when he's running for re-election and in the heat of that battle, let alone potentially 3 years from now if he's running in a primary to try to gain the Republican nomination to be president.
Well, I hope that's not true, because if it is, it's not simply callous, it's almost sinister. Because if you follow all the COVID tracking, and there's plenty of that data out there, since he has begun to engage this battle against cruise lines, against school boards, against local governments, against science, Florida has plummeted in terms of where we stand and how we were doing. I think there are probably 40 states that have a better mortality rate than Florida right now. And for many days, we have led the nation in not simply the number of deaths, but even the death rate at times. So we're getting more people sick at times. We're getting more people hospitalized. And of course, that means more people are dying. And I think we're in a better place today than we were, a couple of weeks ago. But it obviously has been tracking the governor, sort of telling our state that you don't need to really do any of the things that the CDC and doctors and Dr. Fauci are saying you need to do.
Well, the argument that I think the state is trying to make and the governor is making is that all of this is inevitable because this is seasonal, that there is a cycle, that there's a pattern to what you're going to see with regard to COVID, and we were just going through the natural cycle of what we would have not typically expected, regardless of what we could have done.
Yeah, well, first of all, the doctors are not saying that. The CDC isn't saying that. They're telling us we've got to do everything we can to diminish the risk. And everything you do, like get vaccinated, like wear masks, diminishes risk. We're not going to avoid all deaths in the state of Florida, but everything we do that's smart and follows science reduces deaths. And that's all we can do right now, is reduce our deaths and our hospitalizations and our suffering. And you do that by just following the things that the doctors have said we need to do. That makes sense, frankly. Wearing masks makes sense. Getting vaccinated makes sense. Telling people who are coming into your business, if you want to, that they need to be vaccinated. That makes sense, and that should be a right of certainly of a private business owner. But he's fighting all of this because there's a narrow swath Republican voters who are going to be important nationally in a couple of years in a primary. They like to fight everything, and they like to argue against science, and they like to argue that whatever the government is saying must be wrong, and so these conspiracy theories are everywhere, and the governor is doing nothing to stop them.
Well, the argument could be made it's more than just he's doing nothing. He's actually fueling a level of anger. You've seen the video, just one of many examples we've seen across the state. I think it was at the Apple store on Lincoln Road there in Miami Beach, a man just screaming.
The DeSantis said to wear masks. DeSantis has a mask mandate. No, he didn't. You know why? Because they don't work.
The anger is what's so palpable, and it almost seems as if the governor is giving him permission to act that way.
There's no question that that's happening. I get emails and phone calls that are not just disagreeable, but threatening, frankly, that I got to send over to the police chief because they're threatening physical violence simply because I'm talking about using masks and things like that. But the problem is, think about it this way. For every guy like that was in the Apple store who is just unhinged, there are going to be a lot of other people who aren't unhinged, but are listening and saying, well, maybe I don't need to wear a mask. It is a little more comfortable. It's easier. So Governor DeSantis, who's the governor of a huge state, says we don't need to, so I'm not going to. And frankly, that's what we're losing here. Governor DeSantis could really be a leader in this. He could be the guy saying, look, you need to do this to keep yourself and your loved ones and strangers protected and healthier. And I know you don't want to, but you need to. That's what leaders do. They tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And instead, he's telling everybody, look, follow the easiest, most comfortable thing. Don't worry about it. And he's letting he was at a press conference last week where the guy literally next to him started talking about how the DNA or the RNA was changed, which of course is absurd. But he didn't, and the Attorney General did nothing to say, well, that's not true. Don't listen to that.
The vaccine changes your RNA, so for me, that's a problem.
Well, what was your reaction when you watched that clip from that press conference and you saw the governor standing right alongside him?
I just thought to myself, I wonder how many people are now going to follow that and not get vaccinated. How many of them are therefore going to get sick or get other people sick? How many of them are going to die? Words matter in a pandemic. Words matter in a crisis, especially from leaders. And he really has an obligation. Look, I don't even personally really dislike the governor. I mean, I supported what he just announced about testing. I thought that was a good move and a righteous move on his part. But what he's doing now on this pandemic is so dangerous, so deadly, and at some point it becomes almost craven when you realize that the motive seems to really obviously be politics. I know a lot of right-thinking Republicans who are really offended by it.
But you don't hear them speak up.
Well, courage is in limited supply these days. And look, I get it. A lot of these folks want to keep their seats. He could be a nominee of the party. He's the governor, but he has an obligation to our residents. And right now, he is literally going to courts to stop people from doing things that make residents safer, healthier, and less likely to die. And that's sort of nuts that our residents need to be protected from our governor at this point. I really wish he would reconsider. I don't personally have any animus to him. I don't think anybody should have that. But I think he has to reconsider that in the position he has, he could be saving lives. How many people are in a position where simply their words save lives? It's really unbelievable. And I have always found it remarkable that he is, after a bit taking the right path, he's decided to attack a different course that really is unfortunately filled with peril and danger.
CBS News had a very interesting report this week where they interviewed the family of a boy who was having appendicitis and was taken to a hospital, but the hospital was so overwhelmed with COVID patients that the kid had to wait for 6 hours before he could be treated, and in the meantime, his appendix burst. So when you talk about, well, people who don't get vaccinated, if they end up getting sick, that's their choice. You know, if they end up in the hospital, that's on them. They made the choice. They should have the freedom to do it. But that freedom comes at a risk to other people.
And a lot of people can't get vaccinated for legitimate reasons, for healthcare reasons, or some have underlying conditions that a breakthrough virus is going to attach to and create real danger. And look, I think the worst thing about all this, when you think about it, the deaths are obviously the worst, but in the hospitalizations, but how much of this would be avoidable if we simply just got vaccinated? I mean, and it's not even the actions he takes as much as the message he is, as I think, as you pointed out, he's just activating people's disobedience. He's like saying, yeah, take the easier route. Don't wear the mask. Get angry. Don't do any of this. Show up at a school board meeting and fight. I mean, the schools, it's really amazing. My sister teaches at a local public high school, and she and her colleagues made a very interesting point about children with masks, which I think people should think about. She said that, you know, the masking kids in school, almost all the kids, it doesn't bother them. It's easier for them. I mean, it's just not a big deal. And it's an incredible opportunity to teach them a lesson in how to help others. It's like, that's what they should be doing. Instead, the message that's coming all through our schools is that, no, you don't have to wear the mask, even if it endangers a family member or a stranger. You know, worry about yourself. And what they were pointing out is that, how are they going to unteach that to a generation of kids who have been told by screaming parents that they don't have to worry about other people, they don't have to worry about other illness, and or even their own family members? How do you get over that selfishness that's being projected into the school system? And the teachers were saying it's really remarkable that we have to address that as a point that our kids are absorbing because of the debate that they're seeing in a very real way and that they're part of.
When we come back, is a dancing taco really the best way to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month? Broward County thought so. We'll discuss it after the break. Stay with us.